Good afternoon, councillors, staff members and members of the public. Welcome. I declare this meeting open at 5:30, this OCM, and in doing so, would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Noongar Wadandi people, and their continuing connections to land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and to their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. So a couple of announcements for me. I know there's a number of members of the public here, and I believe a number of you here around Beach Road in the Tree Street area. There are some questions tonight from a number of you as well. We'll deal with those when we get to those. That item, and I mentioned last week, the petition was received last week by council. That petition will be received back by this council in our next meeting. So in 3 weeks' time, there'll be a report back to council. There is two options for that. There's the briefing session in 2 weeks' time, and then the OCM in 3 weeks' time as well, which you are able to speak to that item on both occasions, and that's through a deputation form. Previously, there's been public questions asked. The deputation form is the opportunity to raise any other concerns, or basically you have 10 minutes to raise any case. So that'll be presented to us in 3 weeks' time. I'm also saddened to share the news of the passing of former councillor Stephen Prosser. Steve worked or was on council in the 90s. He made a significant contribution to this city. He was a dedicated community man and a very good person. So this council, and on behalf of this council, I send my condolences to the Prosser family. We have received apologies from Councillor Smith and Councillor Broad is on leave, I should say. Yes, well, if approved later on, she'll be on leave. Hasn't been approved yet. I haven't received any declaration of interest that I'm aware of for this meeting. Are there any declarations, councillors? Thank you. So as indicated, there's a number of public questions to go through here. So for those who have joined us, I do note a number of these questions came in either late last week or today. We have some responses, but a number of these will be taken on notice and responded to at that stage. So if we can answer them, we will do. If not, if they're a bit more technical, we'll have to get those responses provided to you. But we'll work our way through this, and I'll invite Ellie to come and join us. Ellie Davin, is Ellie here? Thanks, Ellie. Okay. So come join us at the front here. I think you've got the handheld microphone there. If you could ask that to make sure our audio pick that up. Might just have to press it. No? Just pick it up, don't press it, and it turns it off. So, yep, pick it up. Pick it up. Should be working.
Hello.
Thanks, Ellie. And if you can ask your 3 questions.
Hello, I'm Ellie Davin. We're quite new to Bunbury. We've only been here for 3 years, but we live not far from the Big Swamp. We walk around the area very often, and we love the tree canopy. Where we are in Hoylake Avenue, we do see the tree canopy, and it is magnificent and should continue to be magnificent. My questions are, so could the 2021 Greening Bunbury Plan, page 49, section 5.3.2 and section 2.5.2, please be read out to this meeting tonight to inform all present about the City of Bunbury's own Greening Bunbury Plan?
Thanks, Ellie. I'll ask you to ask your 3 questions.
All 3 of them?
Thank you.
Certainly. The next one is, could the council please confirm the city's own Greening Bunbury page, which states verbatim below, is being put into practice. To remain sustainable and livable into the future, the city is prioritising its greening. Greening refers to practice of increasing and improving the resilience and amount of vegetation in a city. This vegetation is known as urban forest. Currently, Bunbury has a canopy cover of 13.7%, which is well below the West Australian average of 20%. The vision for the Greening Bunbury Plan is nurture and grow our existing urban forest to contribute to the health and well-being of our community and create a livable city for future generations. My third question, can the city now completely justify the sale of 89 Beach Road for the sake of just 2 additional blocks of land when we've just heard, or will hear, the reading of the 2021 Greening Bunbury Plan and confirmation that the city's Own Greening Bunbury page states the plan is for nurture and grow our existing urban forest.
Thank you, Ellie. I think we're taking those on notice. I'll probably just answer by question 3. Obviously, that'll be a council decision, and that'll be made in 3 weeks' time. And obviously, I'm guessing the pre-questions are about your addressing to council to consider those facts. So I can encourage you to raise those facts in next week's deputation as well in 2 weeks' time. Sure. So councils have adopted that greening planning, so councils will be aware that the full responses, including those responses, will be provided in the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellie. Thanks for your questions. Chris Howe.
Hello. Chris Howe from South Bunbury. Using some back-of-the-envelope calculations, using a total area for the city of 65.4 kilometres squared, the claimed increase in canopy cover of 3% would equate to an increase in canopy cover of 2 kilometres squared, or 200 hectares. This is during a time period when vegetation clearing persists, as well as a couple of tornadoes having an impact on vegetation. This makes the 3% increase quite impressive, if accurate. This gives the context for my questions. So question 1, the city has expanded its canopy cover from 13.7% to 16.8% in 5 years, according to the city's media. Was the more recent canopy survey producing the 16.8% figure performed by Arbor Carbon, the same provider as the original survey? And are you able to please provide a map showing where this canopy increase has occurred? Question 2, are you able to provide the survival rate of the 618 plants planted by the city in 2025? Question 3, when there's a target of 10% canopy cover over 10 years in the Greening Bunbury plan, why is the city planting less trees in 2026 than in 2025? The number's 584. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris, and those will be taken on notice as well, I believe, Mr. CEO. Thank you. I mentioned they'll be in the minutes of this meeting because these minutes come out tomorrow. They're actually in the agenda for the following meeting. So obviously in the meeting that I just indicated, so the responses will be in the following agenda, which will be discussing this particular topic anyway. So they will be there. Thank you. Gail. Thanks, Gail.
I'm Gail Parker. I live in South Bunbury, and my questions relate to the zoning of the parcel of land at 89 Beach Road and the importance of the R code should a sale of the land occur. The land is currently zoned residential R15, meaning the site can accommodate 2 house blocks of approximately 728 square metres each. As you would be aware, this is out of keeping with the adjacent blocks in Beach Road, which are zoned R2040, and in Prince Philip Drive, which are R2030. The rule of thumb for developers is the more properties you can get on a block, the better the return on your investment is likely to be. If a developer were to apply to change the R code to 2030, that would mean up to 4 dwellings could be built over the whole site. If the code were changed to R2040, then up to 6 dwellings could be built. The setback required from Chewett Street would also be reduced, and the number of crossings needed would be increased. The city stated on its Facebook page on March 3rd of this year that R15 zoning was selected for the site to respond to community concerns about the scale of proposed development. And I have the following 3 questions. Question 1, should the land be sold to a developer, what control is there over any future request to change the R code? Question 2, should such a change be proposed, would it be through an open and transparent process, for example, advertised in public notices or for public comment? And question 3, would the city be supportive of such a change? Thank you.
Thanks for your questions, Gail. I think these are obviously planning questions, so we can provide answers for these, and I'll defer these to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to question 1, a landowner is able to propose an amendment to a local planning scheme, including a change to the residential density, under the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015. Question 2, in the event that a scheme amendment is submitted to the City of Bunbury, it would be processed in accordance with Part 5 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulation 2015. Should Council resolve to initiate the scheme amendment, it would be publicly advertised and sent to public service agencies in accordance with the Planning and Development Local Planning Scheme Regulations 2015. In relation to the third question, would the City be supportive of such a change? City officers are unable to advise if a scheme amendment would be supported without having received a proposal and undertaken an assessment, including against the relevant state and local planning framework and public consultation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Mr. Gregory Smith. Greg? Thanks, Greg.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Greg Smith. I reside at 87 Beach Road, right next to the situation that I'm about to address you now. The Big Swamp Parkland iconic sign with the City of Bunbury sticker attached is situated on the corner of Beach Road and Church Street on a treed block known as 89 Beach Road. It is quite evident that the sign announces to the passerby that this is a big swamp parkland. The recognition is there for everyone to see, leaving nothing to the imagination. My question is, does the City of Bunbury acknowledge that because the permanent sign is still there, that it creates a perception that this is still parkland?
Thanks, Greg. I'll just ask your second question.
Question 2. For over 20 years, the iconic Big Swamp Parkland sign has proudly displayed to the community that 89 Beach Road is parkland. My question is, does the City of Bunbury acknowledge this sign should have been taken away once the land was rezoned after 2015?
Thanks, Greg. We're going to take those questions on notice as well. Thank you. So we'll provide responses to you. Judith Smith.
Good evening. I'm Judith Smith and I live at 87 Beach Road. We acknowledge that 89 Beach Road was rezoned to residential over a decade ago. There's no disputing that. But would the City of Bunbury be willing to use 89 Beach Road as an example of their commitment to enhancing Bunbury's green tree canopy by rezoning it back to public open space and establishing it as a high-profile urban forest? Incidentally, the City has already begun revegetating this block by planting trees at the Prince Philip Drive end. Question 2. In the short term, if this block at 89 Beach Road is sold now, there would be a monetary gain for the City, erection of 2 houses at the expense of treed parkland. The money would be spent, 2 houses would change hands, but if left alone, trees will last and provide a healthier, greener environment for generations to come. My question is, what is the long-term benefit to the community if this sale goes ahead? Question 3. Professor Kingsley Dixon is a Professor of Botany and Restoration Sciences at the University of Western Australia, and for his environmental work he has been awarded Senior Australian of the Year for WA for 2026. Does the City of Bunbury recognise and value Professor Dixon's expertise in his field?
Thanks for your questions, Judith. The first 2 questions we'll take on notice, but I will probably note that obviously the first question is probably more of an answer for council to make that determination in 3 weeks' time. So I'll probably phrase that with that. And I know the CEO's actually done some work with Professor Kingsley Dixon, so I might ask the CEO if he wants to make comment on question 3.
Thanks, Mayor. The City of Bunbury absolutely recognises and deeply values the extraordinary expertise and contributions of Professor Kingsley Dixon. He brings a wealth of scientific knowledge and environmental leadership that is truly world-class. For those that don't know, Kingsley is working with us on Bolters Heights, a project that we're still scoping, but he has been incredibly generous with his time and his expertise in providing the city that support. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO. Canella Hope. Thank you, Canella.
Good afternoon. I'm Canella Hope and I live in South Bunbury. First question. I asked questions at the 17th of March council meeting. My questions were provided in writing beforehand and I read them out word for word. My questions have been amended in the email reply I've received and in the council meeting minutes that are yet to be adopted tonight. The responses also do not directly answer all the questions that I asked. Why have the questions been changed, not fully answered, or accurately reflected in the council meeting minutes? Question 2. In late December 2025, so not long before the for sale signs at 89 Beach Road went up, the City of Bunbury advertised a tender to prepare a local planning strategy for integrated open space. The tender said this is to plan for anticipated residential growth, roughly a doubling of the current Bunbury population, responding to the open space and recreational needs this creates, particularly for infill areas around the Big Swamp. Amongst other operational documents, the City also has an adopted Parks and Playground Action Plan, 2023 to 2033, so still current. In this, the City has committed to a yet-to-be-prepared, as far as I'm aware, master plan to protect and enhance regional open spaces, which includes the Big Swamp. 89 Beach Road is recognised by the community as part of both the Tree Street area and also the Big Swamp Regional Open Space Reserve. Why is 89 Beach Road being pursued for sale before these City of Bunbury commitments have been met? And question 3, regardless of its zoning for more than 50 years now, a very long time, 89 Beach Road has looked like and been managed by the City of Bunbury as open space. And as you heard, including recent new tree planting enjoyed by the community for this purpose. We all heard from the Mayor in last week's Facebook promotional video that the City of Bunbury recognises how valued or highly valued this area is for its trees, the walkways, and particularly for its livability, and not just by the people that live there. What is the complete list of land and other parks the City owns and intends to sell, the criteria why, and which council meeting was this decided at? Thank you.
Thanks for your questions, Canal. I'll refer to the CEO. Thank you, CEO.
Certainly in terms of the first question, Mayor, I think the other two that we would take on notice, but in relation to your first question around your questions at the last meeting, the responses emailed to you are the same responses that were recorded in the minutes of the OCM on the 17th of March. The City does not keep Hansard style minutes, as this is not a legislative requirement, meaning that any preamble to a question is not always included. The 3 actual questions asked are reflected verbatim. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. And then lastly, we have Catherine Williamson. Catherine.
I had actually written a big spiel about what I'd like
Catherine,
to happen.
Catherine, I might just grab the microphone so we can just pick up the audio. Thank you.
But I have been brought back to 3 questions which have arisen because I thought the tree outside the front of my place at 42B Jewett Street was to be
disposed of in the 5th year of the program of getting rid of the trees in the Tree Street area. On Thursday I received a letter saying it's coming down this week. So my questions are, will the council support the retention of Old Man Tree located at 42B Jewett Street and cease its proposed removal? The second question will be, will the council obtain and provide a written report from a suitably qualified arborist on the condition of the tree located at this address? And my third is, will council ensure the tree remains in place until I am, at my own expense, able to get a professional arborist report for consideration? Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. As we spoke before the meeting, we will have to take those on notice. We don't have answers for them now, but I have spoken to the director of that area, someone will be in touch with you first thing someone will be in touch with you in the morning, and we'll go through that. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you all very much. So for those who are who are here for any of those questions from Beach Road, you're more than welcome to hang around for the rest of the meeting. As I've indicated, there's no items on this agenda in relation to that Beach Road property. You're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but if you would like to leave, you feel free to do so now. I'll give a couple of moments for anyone who wants to do that, but you're more than welcome to stay if you would like to. Okay, councillors, confirmation of the previous minutes. Is somebody happy to move the minutes of the ordinary meeting on the 17th of March be confirmed as true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Gosek. Second, Councillor Ramesh. Likely to be any debate on this item? That's the case. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. We also have the minutes from the two council committees, being the Heritage Committee and the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee. Somebody happy to move that they are true and accurate? Thank you, Councillor Kozisek. And a seconder, Councillor Quain. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So, councillors, dealing with the meeting for this evening, we haven't received any presentations, deputations, and I don't believe anyone has a petition. Yeah, I did both committee minutes, so just mindful of we're shutting it and people still open to the public, but it's probably the right thing to do. Okay, sure. Thank you. Right, so dealing with the agenda for tonight, coming out at this stage for debate is item 10.1.1 and 10.2.1. That requires an absolute majority. At this stage, the other ones are all set to go through en bloc. Is there any others that people would like to discuss? Councillor Turner?
10.5.1.
10.5.1. Any others for discussion? And I'll just repeat that. 10.1.1, 10.2.1, 10.5.1. If that's the case, would somebody like to move that we move 10.3.1, 10.3.2 and 10.4.1 en bloc? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Is there a second? Thank you, Councillor Ramesh. I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. That is passed. They are carried. So we'll go to item 10.1.1. We have a executive recommendation there. Is somebody happy to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Kozisek. Is there a seconder to the executive recommendation? Councillor Turner. Is there likely to be any debate on this, councillors? That's the Councillor Gasser.
Ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
My
You don't need to. You can do it. It's
Yeah.
your
Mr Mayor, really grateful that this is happening. It's been necessary, and it appears we haven't been, in some cases, applying the asset management. But the question is, do we have any indication on budget implications of this thing? I know it's early days, but do we have any indication at all?
In terms of asset renewal gaps, Councillor Gassop, and what the costings may be. CEO, do you have an answer for that you might be able to provide?
Thank you, Mayor. Having significant experience across local government over a number of years, every council, I would suggest, would have an asset gap in terms of what their what perhaps they should be spending on maintaining existing assets, and that balance between existing assets and new assets. We don't have a figure. That's part of the exercise here. As everyone knows, we have been working on asset management plans, but it's really trying to get the quality of the data to a point where we can use that to inform the gap. So that's the bit of work that's been ongoing for a little while. We'll do that and then bring it back. And the budget, there will be budget obligations in there. There's no doubt that there will be a gap that we'll have to address in some way. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO. Any debate, councillors? I'll move that executive recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.2.1, councillors, does require a absolute majority with this, which being 9 councillors, it doesn't matter if we have a couple away, that would still require 5 votes. Is that correct, Governor? Yes, thank you. So we'll require 5 votes. Is somebody happy to move this? It says committee recommendation, but I'm still assuming that's executive recommendation. CEO? So can we just change that to executive recommendation? Thank you. Somebody happy to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Kozsek, is there a seconder to the executive recommendation? Councillor Turner? Is there likely to be debate on this item? Councillor Kozsek?
Thank you, Mayor. I've given this a lot of consideration, but I feel that we are at a turning point with the Harvey Regional Council, and I think that we just need to continue to support. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kozsek. Councillor Turner? Reserve your right. Speaker against? Councillor Gassop?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'll speak on my own behalf. This matter has been going on since I arrived on council, actually, and I felt nervous when it first came to council. It used to come through on confidential items, so I'm very pleased it's actually on public record now. Mr Mayor, when you swore me in, this is the declaration I made: duly, faithfully, honestly, and with integrity fulfil the duties of the office of the people, for the people, according to the best of my judgment and ability. You know, I've made myself familiar with this for 4 years in extreme detail. And for the record, I voted, I think, every time funding was required. So we funded BHRC capital costs and also operational costs to the tune of millions of dollars. We also loaned BHRC $3 million from one of our sale of one of our assets, which is the parking reserve, which was supposed to be used for parking reserve and CBD promotion. So I'm not speaking against any prior council decisions, so I want to clarify that. So from here onwards, I've made myself familiar. I've gone into quiet discernment about this and what I should be doing. Should I be continuing to vote to support shortfall in operational costs, as well as possibly capital costs. So I did ask a question last week, and we've got the answer, and that is, so we are party to a contract on behalf of the people between us and the BHRC, and the contract is a constitutional agreement. And in that agreement, as any lawfully prepared contract, Section 6A says, the orderly and efficient treatment, storage, disposal of waste delivered, and so on. The response was that, it's not up to us to determine whether it's been orderly or efficient. It's up to BHRC. Well, we are party to the contract on behalf of the people of Bunbury. And I'm wondering whether we are actually obliged to keep on handing over public funds, not my money, it's actually ratepayers' money, to this operation, when, in my mind, there's a question about them meeting the obligations in terms of efficiency, which is part of the contract. So, Mr. Mayor, I won't go into too long. My conscience is not clear if I vote to support more funding to this operation. And I'm hoping, Mr. Mayor, that we will sit down and consider alternatives to what's been going on. We can't leave it ongoing. There's been a lot of sunk funds into this operation, and I must be able to look my ratepayers in the eyes and say we're doing the right thing, putting money into this operation. I'm really feeling it's actually time, the turning point time, that we should be looking at alternatives, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. A speaker for the executive recommendation. Councillor Kozisek to close. No further. I'll put the executive recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. 5. Those against? 2 against, and that's carried with an absolute majority. Thank you. Okay, item 10.5.1 is the Southwest Organics Garden Organics FOGO Transport and Processing Tender. We have an executive recommendation presented there. Somebody happy to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Quain. Is there a seconder to this, Councillor Kozisek? Likely to be debate on this item? Councillor Turner, I'll just, Councillor Turner, are you debating or you have a question?
Debating. I'd also like to know if we can take the point separately and maybe make an amendment to point 2.
Sure. We can definitely take them separately then, and based on that thing, is the particular points you'll be debating against? Is that your intention? Just to clarify how I run with this, okay. So if that's the case, then what we might do, Councillor Quain and Councillor Kozisek, I'm assuming you are happy to move all points. So what we'll deal with each point separately. So with item 1 itself, I'll just move the mover and seconder on item 1 itself. Minute taker, I'm probably throwing you on the bus a bit here, but if we just deal with item 1 first, so just move down, or just remove items 2 and 3 for now, or just move them down. And then this part is being moved by Councillor Quain and Councillor Kozisek. So part 1 we'll deal with first. Is there going to be debate on this item, Councillor Turner? Sure, okay. Well, if that's the case, I'll get, this is just dealing with point 1 only, which is authorise the CEO to initiate the procurement process for the Southwest Food Organics Garden Organics FOGO. We're just going to refer to it as FOGO from here on in. Transport tender for a contract term. And I'll ask Councillor Quain, as the mover, to speak to item 1.
Thank you, Mayor. I move this motion because it's just basically instructing the CEO to initiate the process to, as it says there, Southwest Food Organic Gardens FOGO transport tender. So we're just instructing the CEO to move forward with this process so that we can get the information to make a better informed decision in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quain. Councillor Kozisek. Councillor Turner speaking again, sorry. Councillor Turner.
Yes, thank you. And also, I'll be foreshadowing with another motion if this one is not to get through. Since we first began FOGO collection, we must honestly ask ourselves, what have we actually accomplished? The answer is nothing. There is no reliable use for end product. There are no local processing facilities. There's nothing capable of handling what we collect, or the green waste collected at Bankshire Road is now being trucked straight to landfill. The very outcome FOGO was designed to prevent. By any reasonable measure, FOGO has failed. We must guard against the sunken cost fallacy. We shouldn't continue a failing strategy simply because we've already invested heavily in it. The fact that we have spent a lot of money on FOGO is not a reason to keep spending. When stopping is more financially responsible than continuing, we must have the courage to stop. Ratepayers deserve decisions based on evidence and outcomes, not on pride and reluctance to admit a mistake. There is currently no FOGO processing facility in the southwest, unlikely to be one anytime soon. Who will be paying for the one to be built? And at what cost to ratepayers? Private enterprises unlikely to step forward in the short term. Bunbury and Harvey Shire are expected to lead the way and bear all the costs and all the risk. Without a processing solution, FOGO collection is nothing more than an expensive exercise in collecting waste. Ratepayers are currently paying for a service that is not being delivered. Now we are proposing to charge more to transport FOGO to Perth without even knowing what the final costs will be. With fuel costs continuing to rise, the true financial burden of this system has not yet been felt. The community deserves a waste service that is honest about what it costs and what it delivers. The state government's FOGO subsidy arrangement is short term. What happens after September the 30th, 2028? There's no clear answers. Council cannot commit ratepayers to an open-ended, escalating costs with no long-term plan, no processing facility and no certainty of outcome. Continuing FOGO without a viable path forward is fiscally irresponsible. The community's expectations matter. Proper community consultation has not taken place on the changes to FOGO under these conditions. Residents deserve a say in how their waste is managed and what they are being charged for. Yes, there will be some reputational concerns in stepping back from FOGO, but charging ratepayers for a service they are not receiving or sending their waste to Perth at unknown cost is far more damaging to this council's reputation than making a tough but honest decision. There is no easy solution here, only the courage to make the right call. I will be foreshadowing a motion to stop FOGO, restore weekly general waste collection, maintaining fortnightly recycling and amend the waste charges reflected of what a responsible community-focused council should do. The state government's objectives of diverting waste from landfill is one we share, but continuing a system that is unprocessed, sending material to landfill anyway, does not advance the goals. It merely creates an appearance of progress. We just need to go back to a two-bin system. We tried, it failed. The right thing to do now is just stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is there a speaker for this executive recommendation, part 1? I'll speak for this part 1 of this recommendation. Mainly on the fact of just listening to, not that I don't disagree with a number of Councillor Turner's comments, and potentially that may be my final point when we come back, and as the later part of this recommendation indicates, a report will be provided back to Council. after this is. Part 1 is authorising the CEO to initiate the procurement process. So it's initiating that process to understand what is some of those evidence-based positions that are raised as what is it going to cost and what are the other alternatives. And I understand Councillor Turner may have an alternative or an amendment in Part 2, which will look at all of those alternatives, which could be including potentially looking at FOGO. But for the interim, we've spent a long time educating our community on FOGO. I spend, in my role, a lot of times going to schools and the education system within the schools and young kids who are doing the right things through recycling and organics is fantastic. And I know I've got to look at a lot of those kids when I talk to them about changes, and they're the ones that I'm concerned about if we were to go back on FOGO right now at this stage. With that said, that's obviously very much dependent on the final costings and what that will cost and what our community can afford to pay and what we can afford to pay as a council as well. So interested to see what that comes back through, but I think until we have all that evidence and all that information, in my view, we can't make that decision. So looking forward to the CEO bringing that report back in due time. Is there a speaker against the executive recommendation part 1? Councillor Quain to close. Sorry.
Can I just ask a relevant, thanks for relevant questions. Because they'll affect how I vote. Is this an obligation with the procurement process? Is it an obligation to council? Is it an obligation to the CEO? Is it an obligation if we go out to tender that whoever puts in the tender would be expecting that there will be some sort of contract? And if so, can we actually put it maybe an amendment that authorises the CEO to initiate a non-obligatory procurement process?
Yeah, I think part 2, Councillor Gasps indicates that report, including any financial contributions, has to come back to council, but the CEO, or maybe through the director or through CEO, obviously, what the process from here, if you initiate the procurement process, I'm assuming is to getting the pricing, CEO?
Thank you, Mayor. The city would be under no obligation to accept any of the offers that are provided under any procurement process. So, and as you've quite rightly indicated, the second part of it, the intent is to gather information to bring that evidence back around what the market is going to charge. And as has already been referenced, you know, we understand fuel is a large part of that, and you know, we expect that to be reflected in the tender response.
I think part 2 also talks about how the $95 subsidy provided by the state government would impact that as well, which probably opens the door for further conversations with state government, given that the pricing was based on a time when things have changed quite considerably. But yes, in answer to your question, Councillor Gassop, there is no lock-in with this starting process. It's calling for tenders. Sure.
Just the reason I'm asking is it takes a lot of effort and time and money to actually put in tenders for contractors, for businesses. So I'm just wondering if their expectation would be there is a contract at the end of it or not, or whether we should be completely upfront. This is a cost exercise rather than a proper contract, which is what it says up there.
Look, I think that there's a number of things at play here, Councillor Gasser, which includes the 9 of the Southwest Zone councils all going through this process as well. So clearly whatever determination that each council may make may drastically change that potential tender process as well. So this is us indicating we're happy to be part of that conversation, but like any of them, we remove ourselves at any stage. So, further questions? Councillor Quain to close.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for raising those points in your debate. I certainly consider them highly, especially the education that has been put through the students and the value in that and going forward. And also, Mayor, for confirming that it's not we're not tied to anything, and I'm very keen to get further information to make a more informed decision going forward. So I'm really keen for this motion to be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. This does just require a simple majority. I'll put this as just item 1. I'll put item 1. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against. It's 2 against, that item 1 has passed, and we'll move to item 2. So we can bring item 2 up as well, thank you. So again, Councillor Quain and Councillor Kozisek indicated they would support this. We can probably just drop item 3, although I've got a feeling that's probably going to be pretty straightforward. So item 2, Councillor Turner, did you indicate you had an amendment to add to this? Sure, I'll hear your amendment first, and then we'll just consider how to deal with that. So,
After the subsidy, if we could add including considerations of alternative waste service,
I think we've actually got it here already. So,
such as return to tipping system.
that's your amendment there, Councillor Turner. So, effectively, councillors, request CEO, so obviously the initial part stays, and then part 2 is including consideration of the alternative waste service models as a return to a two-based system. Before I just ask for a second, I'll just ask from the CEO's point of view, it's not making a significant change to the intent of the recommendation in my view. Would you agree and happy to accept that as an amendment rather than as an alternative? I'll just quickly check on that ruling first, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. I think in the report the intent would be we would cover that off anyway, but to make that more specific and to clarify that in the changes that are suggested, I think that's fine.
Accept as amendment, sure. And then
Yep.
now, Councillor Turner, you're going to change it?
Is there any possibility to ask anything around community consultation regarding the decision in a sense? Because if they're going to spend more money shipping it to Perth.
Look, I think the CEO, so have you got an answer for that?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, depending on what comes back out of the tender process would probably determine that. I think, you know, ideally, we know this community has been supportive of, you know, FOGO over a number of years. However, you know, Councillor Turner, you know, makes some valid points in terms of the issues that we face, and it's been something that we've been working across the region to try and resolve. I think, depending on timing, we know the community was supportive. Whether we can go back out to the community before we make a decision is probably a question for council, and that can be considered when we bring back the report following the procurement process.
Probably just note, Councillor Turner, that given any changes is going to require significant community education rather than consultation, obviously, through education of whatever changes that may happen, and that's up to this council to determine what those changes may look like. In terms of this particular request, obviously this is dealing with this current procurement progress, and then asking the CEO to report back onto us how we want to deal with that, whether we're happy to take a recommendation out of that report and continue, or you would like to see some community consultation at that stage. Is probably then based on that. At that instance, right now, we wouldn't have the information for us to be able to go out for that community consultation until we had that data that would be provided in this report. Okay, so Councillor Quain.
Mayor, I just have a quick question.
What I might do before you do, I'll just see if there's a seconder to this amendment first, Councillor Quain, because if there's no seconder, it may lapse, so we might not be that. So basically, we have the initial recommendation, which is point 2, request the CEO upon conclusion of the procurement process to provide a report to council evaluating the financial outcomes and the specific implications regarding the state government's 95-tonne subsidy. And Councillor Turner's then put in that amendment for that second sentence, or that next sentence, including considerations of alternative waste service models, such as the return to a two-bin system. So I'll just see if there's a seconder to that amendment. Councillor Gassop seconds that amendment. Okay, Councillor Quain, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just interested to know what the time frame is for the CEO to bring that report back to council, and could that time frame be reflected in the alternate recommendation?
Yeah, I think as the CEO indicated that the report would potentially pick up some of these potential extra thought anyway. But CEO, do you have a time frame on when this is likely to return?
Thank you, Mayor. Not specifically. I know, as you know, I'm back from leave today, but I know there's been ongoing discussions across the other our neighbouring councils about the tender process. And as everyone's aware, we did go out to tender earlier in the year. So this, whilst I recognise some of the comments, shouldn't be a significant burden on those likely providers who have been kept in the loop along the way. So if we wanted it to start, for example, in 1st of July, then we would need to move pretty quickly. So I would suggest, in the next 3 months, we would bring something back. Hopefully, that could be sooner, but I would hope before the end of the financial year.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Ramesh?
Just a comment and a question. Would there be much cost implication for the ratepayer, which either system?
That's what the report would indicate.
So can I just add on the amendment that we had? If we do return to a two-bin system, would there be a rate reduction for the ratepayer?
It's too early to make any commentary around that, Councillor Ramesh. That the whole point of the request of this is to give that report back, which would specifically, as is indicated there, provide back on what that financial outcomes would be. This was specifically around what the cost of this FOGO tender would do in regards to this, including the 95-tonne subsidy. I think we specifically said the implications regarding that state government's 95-tonne subsidy is that's what's been offered, and as we've indicated, there's some councils who are not taking that subsidy, so whether or not there's any scope to look at that as well will be part of that conversation and report that comes back. But ultimately, in terms of what it will cost is exactly what we're asking the CEO to return back to us with, and for council to make a final decision on what that looks like. So it's a bit early on what that may look like. Councillor Ramesh.
Sorry, just a add-on comment on that is, because of the timeline we have, nearly 3 months for this to apply, or is it when is that going to come into motion for us to make a decision on this?
Yeah, I think CEO straight answer that. I think we would have to have obviously our rates and our rates notices included as part of our budget, so it would be tied up into that, I would imagine. But CEO.
Yeah, correct, Mayor, and that's why there is some urgency in us getting on. And as I said earlier, I'm hoping the fact that we've already been to tender once on this issue, that might enable the responses to be a bit quicker.
Any further questions before we move into debate? So we're clear. We're debating right now the amendment of including that extra sentence, which is including consideration of alternative waste service models, such as the return to the two-bin system, and that was moved by Councillor Turner and seconded by Councillor Gassett. Natalie Minutaker, could we just potentially just somehow show that a bit, just slightly different, to show that is an amendment? It's in red, I guess, yeah, so that's pretty clear. So that was moved by Councillor Turner and seconded by Councillor Gassett. So Councillor Turner.
No, just that I look forward to seeing the report come back and to really consider highly the two-bin system. The cost involved, regardless, I don't really think, no matter what the tender price comes back, it's going to be a cost to the ratepayers who are already struggling, and then with the increased pricing in diesel, with trucks going backwards and forwards to Perth all the time, it just doesn't seem viable. And the cost is going to go up. I mean, we're trying to keep rates low, but I can't see that happening if we go ahead and implement, even with a $95 subsidy for rubbish to go to Perth, it's still going to end up costing the ratepayers excess amount of money. Thank you.
Councillor Gassett.
Yeah, I will, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, just raise some concerns. First of all, yeah, I'm being legalistic, but conclusion of a procurement process, that to me sounds quite concrete, but you've already explained that we're not committed. So I just wanted to make it on the public record that it's not a commitment, even though it says procurement process conclusion. The amendment, I think it's a good amendment. It gives us alternatives. I'm really pleased that someone else actually raised it. And so if I can just thank the state government for their offer to contribute to FOGO, Food Organics and Garden Organics. If I can take a stab in the dark, I think it's going to be probably double that to actually truck this stuff and take it away. On top of that, there could be penalties for contamination. So my stab in the dark is could cost, and plus the rise and fall, could cost ratepayers $1.5 million per year in today's money. And without criticising the previous decision, we add that in, so that's about 5% of rate revenue we're talking about between these two things. So it's not not a walk in the park. It's disappointing for me because I was actually on council 20-something years ago when I think we were the first council to introduce FOGO. So, Mr Mayor, I strongly recommend the not alternative, but the amendment. I have a little bit of concern about the wording procurement process, but that's been dealt with. So I do urge people to support the amended motion. It gives us some flexibility. I do add one thing, that it would be great. This is a decision that affects everybody, that we really should take it to the community once all this comes back and have a really good sit down and talk with them. Because it will affect everybody, and it's a decision that the community should be making as well.
Councillor Gass, is there a speaker against? And this is specifically against the amended red line there. Councillor Turner, anything to close? So just to make it very clear, if this amendment is passed, this then becomes part of the executive recommendation, so it will then form part of all of part 2. So those in favour of that amendment, please indicate. That's carried unanimously, thank you. So we can get rid of the red there and make all that one colour. Thank you, minute taker. Perfect. So that now becomes our standard motion. So this is now point 2, which was moved by Councillor Quain and seconded by Councillor Kozisek there, point 2. Is there likely to be any debate now on point 2? If that's the case, I'll put point 2. Those in favour, please indicate. Those, again, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And if we move to point 3 now, which again moved by Councillor Quain, seconded by Councillor Kozisek, is there likely to be any debate on this particular point?
Just a comment question,
Yep.
because point 3 almost answers point 1. So I just wondered whether we should have item number 3 before we haven't made a decision about item number 1 and 2.
I think 1 and 2 are dealing with the short-term procurement process of transporting the FOGO organics, Councillor Ramesh. Point 3 is really indicating support for development of the regional procurement process. So they're talking about a permanent long-term facility. So it's asking, obviously, us to work alongside, I think, the Southwest Development Commission now involved in trying to have a long-term processing facility here. So part 3 is certainly a bit more about that permanent long-term solution, and part 1 and 2 are slightly different. So, yeah. Councillor Gassett.
Last question. Just wondering whether we can add in there regional procurement process, either private or council or public. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think it's definitely being, that'll be part of the consideration. As I said, there's definitely a group at the moment, between the Southwest Zone shires, we've met around this, majority of them, some around, and the Southwest Development Commission are involved. So it's looking at all options. So I think any potential options would be presented back to council. But CEO, anything to add on that?
No, you're entirely correct, Mayor. This has been something that's been discussed for some time. I know through the Southwest Development Commission, waste and having an appropriate waste facility in this region is a key priority for them. And as you're aware, in some of the discussions that we've had around the subsidy, the long-term need for a facility is well understood. So this process will look at all options, but from our point of view, we need a facility in the southwest to process our waste.
Councillor Turner.
If I may, is there any way we can put in support funding for the development?
So you're suggesting external funding, I'm guessing is what you're
Yep.
suggesting. Yeah, I think that's the intent, Councillor Turner, and the correspondence I shared from Minister Swinburne did talk about, you know, that working alongside the Southwest regions with the state government to have a long-term solution. So I think that's pretty clear, and again, that'll be a position that comes back through that process around what that future looks like, which would be determination of private development, of state government support, and any possible solution. So I think it's a little bit early on that, Councillor Turner. But I certainly agree. Is there going to be any debate on point 3? I'll put point... Sure. Against it?
For
I'll
against it, whatever.
Speakers for first. The mover, we have to follow our procedures there, Councillor Turner. So Councillor Aquane moved it. Councillor Aquane, do you want to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very keen to see the development of a regional procurement FOGO processing facility. I'm very keen for this to be investigated because I do think there will be a lot of positives to be gained from this facility. And while we have state government support, I do believe you'd be foolish not to investigate this.
Thank you. Councillor Kozisek.
Thank you, Mayor. I basically agree with everything that Councillor Quain has said. I think we are in a position to be able to bargain more and get more for our region. They have come forward with help funding the FOGO bit, and I think this is our ideal time to look to broader solutions in the broader area and get everybody on board to come up with a permanent facility. So I'm very much in favour of us moving ahead with this and seeing what comes forward. Thank you.
Speaker against?
Thank you.
Councillor Turner?
I think there's a no-brainer that we're all in favour of a regional getting something established permanently for long-term FOGO. Where I don't want to get caught up is where the City of Bunbury has to be the main person that does everything, takes all the financial risk. I'm happy for private enterprise to come in, lease Bunbury Harbour Council, or take it somewhere else, Capel, I don't really care where it is. I just don't want to, in the future, the City of Bunbury have to take all the financial risk and our ratepayers again having to fork out for something that may not end up working again. But yeah, so happy for the state government to come in and work their magic to support what they have basically promised their people to do, but I just don't want the City of Bunbury to have to take all the risk once again. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Turner. Is there a speaker for item 3? Councillor Cassett.
I'll speak because I wanted to really speak against. But, Mr Mayor, we all want this. I'm glad Councillor Turner has raised the points I really wanted to raise. See this pen, Mr Mayor? You go to a factory that makes pens, you can buy them for $1 because they make millions of them. If I was going to make this pen, it's probably going to cost me $10,000 to get a start from scratch. Where I'm leading to with this is that if we are going to pursue something like this, I really believe it should be done by the private industry who do it all the time, who can create efficiencies, who you can pass on the liabilities to, all the way through to rehabilitation. So, you know, we don't want to end up with another liability in asset maintenance or rehabilitation. So if we can pass on something like this, if we can get the funding, if it doesn't cost the ratepayers, if the government's going to help. If we can get private industry to do it competitively, then I will support it. I just wanted to go on the record, I don't want to make amendments, that it really needs to be done probably outside, shall I say it, outside of local government, by people who do it all the time and can do it efficiently, so we don't end up with a quagmire. So, Mayor, thank you. And no disrespect to anything.
Thank you. A speaker against point 3. Councillor Quain, anything further to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for those discussing, engaging in the debate. As I said, very keen for this to develop and be investigated. Thank you, Councillor Kozicek, for seconding this motion. I will be continuing to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put on item 3. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And so that executive recommendation is now the council resolution. Thank you. I think we have applications of leave for Councillor Broad, for tonight, and then one for the 1st of July, the 20th of July. Somebody happy to move 11.1, the first one? Thank you, Councillor Quain. Second by Councillor Turner. I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And 11.2 is the... Sure, I'll deal with 11.2 first. That's definitely. So, Councillor Broad for 1st of July. Are you happy to move that again, Councillor Quain and Turner? And I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. Councillor Turner, did you have a request for leave?
Yes, please. I need a holiday. 14th of May, 26 to the 29th of May, 26. Thank you.
14th of May, so the recommendation will be that Councillor Turner be granted leave of absence for the period of the 14th of May 26 to the 26th, I think you said? 29th, sorry, of May 2026, and those dates inclusive. Someone happy to move that? Thank you, Councillor Ramesh, second by Councillor Kozicek. I'll put that. Those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Enjoy. That motion's been dealt with. That's fine. I believe that brings us to a close. I declare this meeting closed at 6:37. Thank you very much, councillors, for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week.